All right, guys, so here we go. We're coming down to crunch time, and we've got a little bit of time to review before the exam comes up this Friday. So I thought I'd take a time out here and make a video for you guys on what are some of the key important concepts that we've talked about in Chapter 9 and 10. When we started this, I did say this is one of the most technically challenging, probably the most technically challenging unit that we do. It's very, very difficult. It's high level. And we do this fairly quickly, especially considering the time scale that we're on. So I thought it'd be useful to make one of these videos to walk you through the review. What should you be looking at and paying attention to? So the really, really big idea here throughout this unit and really through ecology as we make our way into our next unit is that energy flows and matter cycles within ecosystems, right? And ultimately what we're looking at is carbon. That's really what we're keeping track of. Of course, there's the water cycle and there's some other cycles. But really specifically in this chapter, what you should be good at is looking at where is carbon moving and do you understand that energy is flowing through an ecosystem? So energy can enter as light in a process that we call photosynthesis, in which organisms are taking light and they are capturing that energy and moving it into usable forms, organic forms of carbon called sugars or glucose. When animals or heterotrophs then consume those autotrophs, a lot of that energy gets lost as heat. So energy needs a constant input. It can be transformed, but you can't create it or destroy it. However, as we've seen with organic matter, like carbon, that can be recycled over and over and over and over again in an ecosystem. So it goes from photosynthesis. The inputs of photosynthesis are the outputs of cell respiration and vice versa. So it goes around in a cycle where we need energy as a constant input to fix that carbon in the first place. One of the first concepts that we reviewed with each other was this idea of redox, oxidation and reduction. So as a quick recap of what's going on here, if we have a molecule that we'll call molecule orange here, and we've got molecule green. What we're looking at is the relationship between these two and who's donating electrons, right? So here we've got the initial state of those, we've got some sort of reaction happening, and then we've got a movement of electrons. And when we've got, remember Leo the lion says grr, that's sort of a big key or a big reminder here, or oil rig, in which oxidation means you're losing an electron. So that's what this is showing here, right? Oxidation is the loss of an electron. An electron acceptor is going to be reduced. It is gaining a negative thing in charge, so that's why they named it reduction. It can be confusing. This is usually a concept people struggle with, but something you should be able to do is look at the photosynthesis and cellular respiration equations and see, well, what's being oxidized and what's being reduced. You should also be able to say that in terms of what's happening with electron shuttles. Are they being reduced or are they being oxidized? Okay. Moving on, here's our big overall process. The first thing that we learned about was cellular respiration, in which we've got some very key components here. And I said to you guys, this is actually going to be a key diagram for you to be able to explain. If you can now explain this diagram, you're doing pretty well, because this has all the inputs and the outputs involved in the locations, and all the key concepts are listed out right here. So this is a great slide to pause and even try to recreate yourself. Can you fill all this stuff in and explain it? The multiple choice section of the exams become much easier if you can sit through and you can explain this. So the first process is glycolysis, in which we have glucose moving to pyruvate. And then we've got inputs going into this link reaction, as transport proteins are going to bring in that pyruvate into the mitochondria and turn it into acetyl-CoA, which is where we're starting in the citric acid cycle. And that's where we're going to get the rest of the CO2 leaving. We're going to have electrons that are going to go into the oxidative phosphorylation and electron transport chain, in which we're going to get a lot of ATP. Oxidative phosphorylation just comes through electron transport and chemiosmosis. We get a little bit of ATP in these two stages from substrate level phosphorylation, so substrates, some of those intermediates, actually producing some ATP. And this takes place in the cytosol, glycolysis, and in the mitochondria, what we have happening inside of the mitochondria is the rest of cellular respiration, the citric acid cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. If we start right back here, we're making a small amount of ATP, right? But once we get to glycolysis, we have a checkpoint. So this outlines what those checkpoints are. In respiration, if we have something that has oxygen, so if we have plenty of oxygen available, we have an aerobic condition, plenty of oxygen. What's going to happen is we're going to go to glycolysis, and then we're going to move on to the citric acid cycle and oxidative phosphorylation. You should be able to make a link here with what's happening in evolution, that there had to be enough free oxygen in the atmosphere. There had to be enough oxygen as a waste product first in order for cellular respiration to happen. So the idea is that photosynthesis was actually around first. It gave off a lot of oxygen that built up in the atmosphere, and now that free oxygen was available to do the citric acid cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, which means you can have very complex multicellular life. Right, so if we're not going down through that pathway, this must have been the more ancient pathway, anaerobic. This is before photosynthesis let off all of that oxygen gas. So notice that glycolysis is a conserved core process. It's involved in both before oxygen was available, before photosynthesis, and after photosynthesis. These are both core conserved processes, and you'll find them all throughout life. So that will move on to glycolysis, but then there's this checkpoint. If we're anaerobic, we're moving on to something called fermentation. So these are our pathways for fermentation. We have glucose coming into the cell. Here's the cytosol. We've got glycolysis turning that glucose into 2 molecules of pyruvate. No O2 present. We are going through either ethanol, lactate, or other products. You guys only need to know ethanol or lactate for the AP exam. Or the other path is what we spent most of our time talking about. There is O2 present. It's aerobic cellular respiration. So we're going to turn that into that pyruvate into acetyl-CoA, and that will make its way into the citric acid cycle. These just come from your book and some of the reading that you were supposed to do, in which we have glucose going through glycolysis again, and that's going to make a little bit of ATP, right? So we've learned that, and then we looked at what happens with the pyruvate if it's present with oxygen, is that pyruvate gets turned into acetyl-CoA. That's not what happens here in alcohol fermentation. So what we have is the cleavage of this CO2 molecule sitting right up here on top. So notice the difference between this molecule and this molecule. This direction is showing the byproduct, which is CO2 cleaved, right? So they've highlighted that in gray. And then what we've got left over is C double bonded to an O and then to a methyl group right down here. And right up top, there's a hydrogen that's a placeholder. Right, so hydrogen has made its way in there. Now this product here is called 2-acetaldehyde. Right, that's what we've got sitting right here, 2 carbons. What's going to happen then is that this is going to be acted upon, so that NADH that came from glycolysis, that is going to drop off the electrons that came from glucose that otherwise would go into the electron transport chain. Those need to go somewhere. Those electrons can't just hang out forever inside of the cell. They need to go somewhere. That is the job of this. And that's going to be oxidized to NAD+, and that means the 2-acetaldehyde gets reduced to ethanol, a byproduct of alcohol fermentation. This is a thing that yeast will do. There's an industry based off of this, right? We do a different strategy. Ours is called lactic acid fermentation. So these processes are similar. Glycolysis still happens. Here we've got 2-pyruvate. So notice the structure of these pyruvate molecules. Here's the CO2 group right up here on top again, right? Notice what happens here is that we have NADH being dropping off those electrons to take this pyruvate directly to lactate. Notice how many carbons are here. 1, 2, 3. We didn't change very much about this molecule. Notice that all we did is we changed this little group down here. This group stays the same. This methyl group stays the same. This carbon is still here. So this is what we're honing in on. The pyruvate has a double bond to oxygen. This now has a single bond to oxygen, and it has some hydrogens coming from the NADH, and that's also now where the electrons are. So we'll do this in animal cells, and also some bacteria will produce lactate. So you get a buildup of this lactic acid inside of muscles in anaerobic conditions. Here's the process of glycolysis, just in a little bit more detail, the things that you guys need to know. Is that there's an energy investment phase. We have to use 2 ATP in order to make glucose unstable. There's also a payoff phase in which we get, this is the substrate level phosphorylation. We get 4 ATP formed. We also get 2 NADH. NAD plus is reduced to NADH, and then we get a couple protons, and then we also get some pyruvate that's formed. So net, this is what you should know, 2, 2, 2. 2 pyruvate, 2 ATP, 2 NADH. That's what comes out of glucose being split down into those pyruvic acids or pyruvate, right? So then we have those 2 pyruvates that have been made from glycolysis that, with the help of a transport protein, are going to make their way into the mitochondria. Before they can go into the citric acid cycle, however, there needs to be a little bit of processing. So the first thing is really similar to what actually happens in alcohol fermentation, where we're going to have this carbon dioxide group sitting right up here cleaved off, and now there's just a backbone. That CO2 leaves as a byproduct. This is the first time that we see CO2 being produced in cellular respiration. That's great for CO2 to be produced because that's an input into photosynthesis. This is where that carbon comes from for photosynthesis to move into sugars. We also have NAD plus being reduced into NADH and a proton, right? So this will ultimately go to the electron transport chain. And then we have coenzyme A joining up with what was left of that pyruvate in order to form this compound called acetyl-CoA. Remember, this happens twice for every glucose because we have two pyruvate that were made. They are then going to move into the citric acid cycle. So here comes the acetyl-CoA. CoA gets cleaved off, so these two carbons, which are represented here with these gray circles, enter the cycle. They join up with some of these intermediates. At these stages, you get the cleavage of two CO2 molecules, so that's ultimately where the carbon goes. So notice that we had two carbons here. Two carbons are going to leave as CO2, so there's no carbon left. The rest of that the glucose is completely oxidized at this point. The NAD plus is going to go to 3-NADH. Again, those electrons and hydrogens are coming from the glucose molecule. They're coming from the acetyl-CoA. We're then going to get a little bit of substrate level phosphorylation here. Your book discusses something called GTP. So initially what happens here with the citric acid cycle is GDP gets turned into GTP, and then that GTP gets turned into ATP. I'm not so keen on that. That's not a big detail that you need to know as much as ATP gets produced through substrate level phosphorylation here. Then through a couple more changes, we get a few, we get a few more electrons dropped off to FAD to form FADH2, right? And we have two of these happening for every single glucose molecule. So you get a total of 4 CO2, 6 NADH, 2 ATP, and 2 FADH2 that will ultimately make their way up and into the last stage, which is the electron transport chain and oxidative phosphorylation, in which we have the inner membrane space here of the mitochondria and then the mitochondrial matrix, the very inside of the mitochondria. And the big idea here is that we have a buildup of protons, right? We are creating an electrochemical gradient here. We are moving hydrogens against their concentration gradient. We are going from low to high. That builds up energy, right? So we have to find the energy to invest in order to get this process to happen. Remember, things don't like to go from low to high. They naturally go from high to low. So we are pushing the rock up the hill here. We have to invest energy. Normally that energy comes from ATP. This does it a little bit different. Instead, we've carried those energy-rich electrons all the way from glycolysis and citric acid cycle over to the electron transport chain, in which NADH is going to drop off its H pluses and its electrons, so it becomes oxidized back to NAD plus, so it can go pick up some more. These get dropped off, and as these electrons are passed along, they are lowering in potential energy. Their delta G is negative. They are providing the potential energy necessary to take protons and pump them from low concentrations to high concentrations. This is now a ton of potential energy with all these protons being around one another. They only have one escape. They have to go through the enzyme ATP synthase, this integral protein that's in the inner mitochondrial membrane. That's going to take ADP and phosphorylate it to ATP. Phosphorylate, by the way, just as a reminder, means that we're taking an inorganic phosphate. We're loading the spring on ADP, so we turn it into ATP. This is how we're making all of our ATP, tons of it. About 34 molecules of ATP for every molecule of glucose, right? So this is oxidative phosphorylation is what we have here. The last detail that I would point out here to you guys is that there's also some FADH2 doing the same thing, dropping things off here. But then ultimately, the ultimate electron acceptor, where these electrons must go from glucose, is to oxygen. So these H pluses, some of them will come back down and through, and they'll join up with an oxygen, half of an oxygen molecule, and some of those protons. They join together with those electrons, and now you form water, and water is released as a byproduct, another input in the photosynthesis, right? So we saw CO2 leave, and we also saw H2O leave through this process of cell respiration. Those are both the inputs to photosynthesis, and that's the matter cycling. However, when these get passed along, and we're losing a little bit of that energy, it's not 100% efficient, that gets lost as heat. We can't get that back, so we need a constant input of light, which gets us to our second process called photosynthesis. I'm going to stop the video here because I'm almost at 15 minutes, and I will see you guys for part 2 with a discussion on photosynthesis here in a second.